Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the podcast. And today I'm going to go my review of Monday Night Raw. Before the night even gets started, man, obviously, Raw going over to Netflix January 6th is a big deal. This was actually the last episode of Monday Night Raw on the USA Network after Raw has been with USA, for what I understand, for about 32 years, which is a very long time, bro. You're talking over 3 different decades. 30 some odd years that Monday Night Raw has been a part of the USA Network, and it was kind of bittersweet, man. I mean, obviously, I'm excited for what Raw is going to be doing on Netflix. Obviously, the January 6th episode, the debut episode of Raw on Netflix, is going to be absolutely incredible. The show is absolutely stacked from top to bottom with a lot of marquee matches, from Roman taking on Solo to CM Punk taking on Rollins, Liv Morgan defending her belt against Rhea Ripley. I'm excited, man. I think the future looks very bright for Monday Night Raw, but like I said, man, it is bittersweet because I grew up watching Monday Night Raw on the USA Network. But times are changing, and I think they're changing for the better. So, just wanted to talk about that quickly before we get into tonight's Monday Night Raw show. Speaking of Monday Night Raw, though, we start off with the New Day. The New Day come out to the ring. They have a microphone. Come out to the ring. They're standing in the middle of the ring. New Day then are wondering why the fans are booing them. After that, Jey Uso comes out, pretty much interrupts the New Day. Jey says that the New Day sucks. Crowd, starts chanting New Day sucks. The New Day end up leaving the ring. Jey then calls out Drew McIntyre, but instead the Bloodline are shown on the Titantron. Bloodline talks about attacking Sami Zayn, that he had it coming. Solo says that he's going to destroy Roman Reigns on January 6th. McIntyre then attacks Jey Uso from behind. McIntyre then goes for a Claymore kick on Jey, but Jey counters it with a super kick, but McIntyre ultimately hits a Claymore kick on Jey Uso, sending a message to Jey Uso and the original Bloodline. Moving on from that, we go into our first official match of the night. It is Otis taking on Chad Gable. I thought it was a good match, man. It was a back-and-forth matchup between Otis and Gable, with Otis keeping the pace of the match. Otis then hits a press slam on Chad Gable in the middle of the ring. Otis then hits a worm into an elbow drop on Gable as well. American Made are ringside. They end up attacking Tozawa ringside. Maxine Dupree gets involved as well by attacking Ivy Nile ringside. Gable then applies an ankle lock on Otis, but the hold is broken. Otis then gets up, applies an ankle lock of his own on Chad Gable, but the hold is broken. Gable then applies another ankle lock, and unfortunately Otis had no other choice but to tap out, and your winner of the match is Chad Gable. Hats off to Chad Gable for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we have a Women's Intercontinental Tournament semifinal matchup. It is Dakota Kai taking on Zoe Starks. I thought it was a good match, man. It was a back-and-forth matchup between Kai and Starks, with Kai keeping the pace of the match. And Dakota Kai ultimately hits the finish on Zoe Starks, pins for the 3. And your winner of the match, and moving on to the Women's Intercontinental Tournament final, is Dakota Kai. Hats off to Dakota Kai for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we have a 6-man tag team matchup. It is the Judgment Day taking on the War Raiders and Damian Priest. Number one, I thought the Judgment Day's new entrance theme, I thought it was absolutely trash. In my honest opinion, I thought it was trash. The match itself, though, was a decent match, man. It was a back-and-forth matchup between the Judgment Day and the War Raiders, Damian Priest, with the War Raiders and Priest keeping the pace of the match. JD then hits a springboard moonsault to the outside, but Damian Priest ultimately hits the finish, pins for the 3. And your winners of the match are the War Raiders and Damian Priest. After the match, though, Finn Balor looks like he had some unfinished business with Priest by attacking Damian Priest after the match. Moving on from that, we have Adam Pearce. Adam Pearce makes an announcement that it will be Jey Uso taking on Drew McIntyre on Raw's debut episode on Netflix, January 6th. Definitely excited for that. Moving on from that, we have a vignette that's been playing as of late. A lot of people were, and myself included, were really speculating on who this could be. I said it was Penta, and it looks like it actually is Penta. If you looked at the vignette, you could see and how they were designing it. The original vignette that we saw was the circle with the line through it, and that got a lot of people's attention, myself included. Where we all, my instant thought was, okay, this is going to be Penta. With the vignette that was played Monday Night Raw on Monday, it was 100% solidifying that this is going to be Penta debuting for Monday Night Raw, possibly on the debut episode on Netflix. When you look at the vignette and how it was played out, you could see it was like they were kind of drawing the mask that Penta wears. You had the mouth of the mask, and then the eyes come in with the circle with the actual eyeballs and stuff like that. It's 100% Penta debuting for Monday Night Raw, which I'm excited for, man. I know a lot of people are actually not excited about this. I know there's some AEW elitists out there that are like, hey, man, this is bullshit. I can't believe Penta's leaving AEW to go over to the enemy, WWE. I don't look at it like that, man, to be honest with you. And I said this from the jump when it pertains to both Penta and Phoenix and the Lucha Bros. The tag team division for AEW is abysmal. It's not what it once was at all. And they had probably, if not the best tag team division in all of professional wrestling in the first 2-3 years of AEW's existence. That's not the case anymore. Obviously, there's a lot of hostility there between Phoenix and Tony Khan and how they're handling the situation with Rey Fenix. Penta, he wrestled throughout his contract. His contract was up. He became a free agent. So at the end of the day, for the people out there saying, this is bullshit, man, you can't... You have to be a fan of the superstar, man. I said this about Cody Rhodes. I said this about Jade Cargill. I said this about CM Punk. And I'm going to say the same thing about Penta. For what it's worth, man, when these men and women go over from AEW to WWE, I feel like it's benefiting that superstar immensely. You look at the run that Cody Rhodes has had being Universal Champion and him completing his story with Roman Reigns, these high-profile matches that he's had as of late with Kevin Owens, and it's only getting better as time goes on. I believe Rhodes and Owens will have a ladder match to decide who is the real world's champion, kind of a knockoff to what Shawn and Razor did back in WrestleMania. I believe it was WrestleMania 10 in the ladder match where they were actually trying to solidify who really was the real Intercontinental Champion, which Razor Ramon ended up beating Shawn Michaels that night. I feel like it's, they're playing a little nostalgia act here with Rhodes and Owens doing the same thing, but instead of the Intercontinental Championship, they're doing it for the Universal title. So I'm all for that. But as far as the AEW superstars going over to WWE, it's going to happen a lot more times than people believe. To be honest with you, there's probably current AEW superstars, and then, given the opportunity from WWE, they're probably going to go, bro. Because right now, the creator for AEW is just not there. And it's the same way I feel about Penta and Phoenix. There's nothing they can do in that tag team division. They can't carry that entire division on their backs. There's no tag team division. So for Penta to come in, obviously Rey Fenix is not able to go over yet. I feel like they're trying to cook up something here for Penta for his debut for Raw. And I'm all for it. I think, Penta having a singles run will be absolutely great. They could have lined him also up with LWO, which I will talk about later on in the show. But I'm all for it, man. Hopefully we get Penta debuting on the debut episode of Raw on Netflix. Definitely looking forward to that. Moving on from that, we have a Ludwig Kaiser segment. Kaiser comes out to the ring. Kaiser says that he should be the top guy in WWE or Monday Night Raw. Kaiser then calls out Braun Breaker. Sheamus returns. Sheamus is here. He comes out to the ring, attacks Kaiser, and then Sheamus hits a bro kick on Ludwig Kaiser. Moving on from that, we have another Women's Intercontinental Tournament semifinal matchup. It is Io Sky taking on Lyra Valkyria. I thought it was a good match. Back and forth matchup between Io and Valkyria, with Valkyria keeping the pace of the match. Io then hits a moonsault to the outside, taking out Valkyria, but Valkyria hits a roll-up on Io, pins for the 3. And your winner of the match, moving on in the Women's Intercontinental Tournament final, facing Dakota Kai, is Lyra Valkyria. Hats off to Lyra Valkyria for getting the win in that matchup. Moving on from that, we have a face-to-face between Seth Rollins and CM Punk. And I thought this was absolutely fantastic. It was a great way to really get the fans invested in this matchup. Both Rollins and Punk are in the ring. They have microphones. Rollins hypes up the match. Rollins then mocks CM Punk. Punk then comes out to the ring, grabs a microphone. He mocks Rollins. Punk then mentions Becky Lynch and the fact that she is staying home. Rollins then mentions Punk leaving for the competition and how, that really didn't work out for him. Rollins says that he is the big brother. Punk said that he left WWE because the guy that was originally in charge. A lot of great stuff there in the back and forth banter there between Seth Rollins and CM Punk. A couple of things I want to talk about, man, when it pertains to Monday Night Raw before I get the hell up out of here. Number one, was it a good show? Yeah, it really honestly wasn't that bad of a show. I think honestly, myself and a lot of people that do this, and even fans included, like myself, we're all anticipating what Monday Night Raw is going to do January 6th with the debut episode of Monday Night Raw on Netflix. And I've said that since I've been blue in the face since they announced Raw, going over to Netflix. I think it's a huge, monumental deal for not only Monday Night Raw, but WWE to be a part of Netflix. This is going to be epic, to be honest with you, where, Netflix is global, all over the world. So to have, Raw be a part of that, everybody around the world that has Netflix or can, get Netflix available to them can watch Monday Night Raw on a consistent basis every single Monday night. Now, with that being said, the card is absolutely stacked. I mentioned it earlier, beginning off with the podcast today, that, you have a lot of marquee matchups. You got the announcement of Roman taking on Solo Sikoa. You'll also have the announcement of CM Punk taking on Seth Rollins. Then you have Liv Morgan defending the Women's World Heavyweight Championship against Rhea Ripley in a grudge match. Then you also have the announcement from Monday Night Raw from Adam Pearce that it will be Jey Uso taking on Drew McIntyre as well on this episode, not including the return of John Cena. John Cena's farewell tour starts that night. We're going to have appearances from The Rock, possibly appearances from Becky Lynch, also a possible debut of Penta. This card is going to be absolutely incredible in LA, to a point where Monday Night Raw on January 6th is going to feel like a pay-per-view. It's going to be absolutely incredible, and Raw is coming out with a bang, man, to be honest with you. And I told you guys, man, 2025 is going to be one hell of a year for professional wrestling from both sides of the fence, whether it's WWE and AEW. AEW, obviously, they're having their debut on HBO Max, a simulcast, starting January 1st. It's going to be incredible, man. And it's going to be something where, it's going to get a lot more fans invested in these products, whether it be AEW or WWE, with them being on Netflix and HBO Max. And I'm all for it, man. I think, the Raw debut episode on Netflix is going to be insane. And for those who don't know, starting January 6th, Raw does go back to, I believe, 3 hours from here on out. So the 2 hours, from what I understand, is going to be going away. And so much so that Raw, not only Raw will be 3 hours, but SmackDown moving forward will also be 3 hours moving forward. So there's going to be a lot of wrestling that we're going to be getting on a consistent basis, week in and week out, with Raw and SmackDown being 3 hours, and obviously AEW Dynamite being 2 hours, as well as Collision. So we have a lot of wrestling to really digest as fans and podcasters out there to really sink our teeth into with this. And I think, anybody who's a wrestling fan are going to have their eyes tuned in on Netflix January 6th for the debut episode of Raw. It's going to be absolutely incredible with the surprises that we get. We get the return of John Cena on his farewell tour, a possible debut of Penta on Raw. There's a lot of things going on. And speaking of Penta, the reason why I mentioned earlier, if you guys did miss it, when I said that there could be a chance where Penta could join the LWO. And the reason why I'm saying this is because on Monday Night Raw, there was a backstage segment with the New Day and LWO, pertaining, mainly between Rey Mysterio and Woods and Kofi Kingston, where it looks like there's going to be a tag team matchup here between the New Day, and Rey has to find a partner. So there could be a very good chance that this match could possibly take place on the January 6th episode of Raw, maybe to open Raw, maybe, who knows, where Penta does debut, and Rey finds his partner in Penta, and Penta debuts and teams up with Rey to take on the New Day. I'm all for it. I'm absolutely all for it, man. I think Penta is going to do great things on the main roster, to be honest with you. I know, like I said earlier, there's a lot of AEW elitists out there that are going to absolutely hate the fact that Penta is on Monday Night Raw. And if you are one of those kind of people, man, I don't know what to tell you. I'm a fan of AEW, but I'm also a fan of these certain superstars that are out there. I'm a fan of Cody Rhodes. I'm a fan of Penta. I'm a fan of, Rey Fenix, Ricky Starks. I want to see these men and women prosper wherever they go. I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's the same thing with AEW. When they come into AEW, a lot of these guys revamp their careers. It's the same thing I said about Swerve Strickland. Swerve really wasn't doing anything in his WWE run. He really wasn't. Hit Row was a disaster. It went nowhere. Hit Row was called up to the main roster way too quickly. Swerve wasn't really doing a whole lot in NXT. I mean, obviously his NXT run was better than the main roster run, or so they say. But, Swerve reinvented himself going over to AEW, and he is, if not the top guy, or one of the top guys for AEW. And he's completely turned his career around, man. And Swerve is AEW through and through. And he really saved his career going over to AEW, because honestly, I don't know what would have happened in WWE. And I believe they also released Swerve out of his contract. So obviously they didn't have a lot of, faith in Swerve at that time. So, I mean, it's going to be, and obviously there's free agents coming up too I know Josh Alexander from TNA, he's going to be a free agent sometime this month in January. So there's going to be a lot of shit going on here. We got the Royal Rumble coming up too, so there's going to be some debuts possibly at the Royal Rumble. So, there's going to be a lot of craziness going on for, professional wrestling. And I'm locked in, man. I think 2025 is going to be a great year for professional wrestling. And by the way, even though I didn't mention at the beginning of the podcast, I hope you guys had a safe and fun holidays this year for Christmas. I hope you guys were having fun for New Year's Eve as well. And I hope you guys were out there staying safe and having fun with New Year's and spending time with your family on for the holidays, man. Hopefully everything went great with you guys. But yeah, man, to me, this is something where, and I'm gonna, for what it's worth, I'm not gonna, sugarcoat anything. You know what I mean? Obviously, AEW needs a lot of work. I'm very intrigued on what they're going to do with HBO Max. But it's the same thing with Raw. I mean, Raw, the biggest thing I would say with the debut episode of Raw on Netflix, and I had to go back to this, is what happened with the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight, where a lot of people were tuning into that fight, and it was buffering issues. People couldn't tune in because of the buffering issues, and it went on for a while. I mean, that could be a catastrophic nightmare for the debut episode of Raw on Netflix night one. It could be a huge problem for Raw. And a lot of people, and myself included, are probably going to complain about it because this is a big, big deal. And if that were to happen, God forbid, it's going to be crucial for Monday Night Raw. And it could really, it could be a real bad situation if that were to happen. Hopefully it does not. But if you watch the Mike Tyson-Jake Paul fight and knowing Raw is going to Netflix, you have to understand the fact that that's a possibility that very well could happen, and it's going to piss a lot of people off, and it is. But if everything runs smoothly, and hopefully it does, this is going to be one of the greatest episodes of Monday Night Raw we've ever seen, I believe, in a very, very long time. And the way that they had this card stacked up with the matches, The Rock's supposed to be there, John Cena, possibly Becky Lynch, possibly a debut of Penta. It's going to be one hell of a night. And then, on top of that, everybody, and that's the other thing a lot of people are overlooking too, I believe, is John Cena. I mean, John Cena is on his farewell tour. This is it. 2025 is the final year that we're going to see John Cena, I believe, in WWE. He's going to retire, come WrestleMania. So, it's a big deal. And a lot of people want to hear what John Cena has to say. And obviously he's going to be a part of the Rumble. Who's going to be, his first match. He might have a first match before the Rumble. We're going to see. We're going to, everybody wants to hear what, The Rock has to say, John Cena. It's going to be epic. It's going to be absolutely incredible, and I'm locked in for it, man. It's going to be one hell of a ride for 2025, and it's going to be pretty interesting to see what happens for Monday Night Raw moving forward. But with that being said, this is my review of Monday Night Raw. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Be careful, and remember, stay classic. Peace.